Hi, Annalisa Six here with the Sober Curator and Lady of Leisure to give you the March 2023 horoscope for the zodiac sign of Pisces for sun and rising placements. Pisces, last but not least, I feel like it took me forever to get here. I'm so excited that this is the last video. I've been having health problems, so I had to break up the videos into, it's 3 days. I took a rest day yesterday. My body's just been not good. So here I am, though, finally getting it done. It's March 4th, so we've had a couple things happen already. We'll just dive right in. It's Pisces season. It's your season. Happy birthday to all the March Pisces. I think, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. I have more March Pisces people in my life than February Pisces people, so I feel like I shouldn't say what I was going to say, but I'll say it. I was going to say I think I prefer March Pisces over February Pisces, but again, I just think I have only March Pisces people in my life. I don't even think that's a preference thing. I think it's just how it is. Paige Mykoski, who is the founder, creator of Aviator Nation, which is my favorite brand that I wear around the house and out in the world every day. She's a February Pisces, so I guess I should not think that just because I only know March Pisces that they're somehow better than February Pisces. It's not a fair statement. I'm an August Leo and I have a preference towards August Leos. I love July Leos too, but I don't know. August just feels like Leo season to me, even though it's also shared with Virgo. I just feel like August Virgos are really Leos personally. That's not a fair astrologer thing to say. I'm not allowed to say that stuff, right? Anyways, I'm being funny. Okay, so we started out Pisces season with Mercury in the last couple of degrees of Aquarius, and on March 3rd, yesterday, Mercury joined Pisces and is going to be in Pisces until the 19th. So let's talk about just where the sun is for you and where Mercury is for you. So the way that horoscope charts are calculated, whether you're a Pisces sun or rising, is based on the rising sign. So the chart is calculated as a Pisces rising chart, not a sun in Pisces, because the sun could be anywhere, right? And the rising sign is considered to be a sun influence. So that's why that's why we tell you to look at your rising and your sun sign when you're doing horoscopes, because you might resonate with your rising sign more in terms of what's actually happening in your life. But so far, my experience doing horoscopes, at least for me, I've noticed both my sun and rising to be incredibly accurate. So I just think both of them are helpful. I've even noticed stuff with my moon sign being accurate with some of it for me. So I don't think they usually say look at your moon sign too, but you never know. So for you, I think Mercury in Pisces is going to be a really great time to focus on yourself, because Mercury is in the area of the chart for Pisces that rules the self. It's the house that Aries traditionally rules. And having Pisces here, you might be working through your perceptions of self, your ideas about yourself, the way that you think about how you express yourself and put yourself into the world. And so if you're contemplating changes that you want to make, or you're envisioning kind of this other persona or personality or identity that you've been contemplating, this could be a powerful time for you to start cultivating that and thinking about ways to bring it to fruition. And I think that one of the things that's true, I think, for a lot of Pisces dominant people is it's really fun to creatively express yourself in ways that kind of break the mold, right? Like Pisces doesn't want to be in a box. Pisces doesn't want to be traditional. Pisces wants to be whatever feels authentic to them, but it's a feeling centered thing. It's not oh, I see that person doing it over there, so I want to do it. It's what do I feel like? What's my vibe? And how do I align myself to feel more authentic to that, even if it's totally outside of the box, right? I automatically am just thinking of those people that call themselves mermaids and wear mermaid suits and swim and do that kind of stuff. Like, that's such a Piscean thing to do, to say I identify with this mermaid lifestyle, even though it's totally unconventional and out there, very Aquarius too. And I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to rock it. I know for me, like, I have a Pisces moon, so I feel like I'm kind of on the same trip a little bit myself, where when I was a kid, I really couldn't reconcile being human. It was really, really hard for me to accept the fact that I had incarnated in a human form. Like, I hated it. I cried about it. I, would just start crying. My mom would be like, "What's wrong?" And I'd be like, I'm not a dog, like I wanted to be a dog so bad. And so I would have these like, I'd play these games with myself where I was a dog, and that was, who I decided to be. And there's this movement kind of happening with the way that we're talking about gender pronouns, where I saw some interview where a woman was saying that, the way that we're dealing with pronouns now in school, in some schools that are more progressive, if kids are choosing to identify as other species, the instructor is having to abide by that, to not, like project these societal norms onto kids and make them feel like their ideas of how they feel and want to be in the world are, wrong or whatever. We don't want to create trauma around that. I have my own feelings about that stuff that I'm not going to get into, just in the sense that I was a kid like that. Like I had a huge imagination, did not resonate with being human, did not resonate with my gender, did not like my name, didn't resonate with my name. I felt very much like I was this spiritual entity that couldn't be defined, couldn't be confined, couldn't be defined. And I think a lot of people feel that way, regardless of whether or not you have Pisces in your chart. But I think Pisces is an energy that, I think Aquarius and Pisces are energies that really encapsulate that, like that connection to community and the all, and being a part of the all. We all inherently, regardless of what form we were incarnated into, have that neutral source, and I think I'm going to get so out there right now, but I think I always get out there with the Pisces videos because I'm like that. And I feel like Pisces is too. I feel like you guys can handle it. But one of the things that I also am thinking a lot about through what's happening astrologically and where we're headed in humanity is artificial intelligence, right? And there's all this fear about artificial intelligence becoming self-aware and conscientious of itself. But I think that that's already present. Consciousness is infinite. It's already there. And so whether it wakes up in the form of creation that is perceived as natural law through sex and birth, or the way plants do it, or the way other minerals and whatever, however it happens, the thing that's scary with AI is that it's humans playing God, where we ourselves have not figured out our own thing, and we're creating these vessels for consciousness that we ourselves are still not, we don't understand all the way, right? So what happens if you create a vessel and put consciousness into it? We don't really know, outside of our own procreation, watching other animals and species procreate that we've studied. Like we've studied so many species, we've never studied our own robotics creation having awoken consciousness. And there's a lot of scientists that are playing around with that now, that believe that they've created that and discovered that. And we're seeing those things leaking out into the media in these very subtle ways. And if you're not aware of that, if you're not reading the articles and some of the stuff coming out about it, I suggest you do, because it's fascinating. And to me, this identity journey that Mercury and Pisces is for you, Pisces, might be just reconciling and being okay with the fact that you are indeed a spiritual consciousness having a human experience, not a human having a spiritual experience. And I think that the reason why I bring up AI is because I think it's a perfect example of the fact that consciousness and the way that it, in AI is neutral, it's non-binary. Like AI is non-binary, it's only gendered if we program it to be gendered, right? So I think that AI is kind of like the purity of consciousness of non-binary gender, right? Because even in species, in the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, we have this gendered idea of consciousness, or we have non-binary, there's hermaphroditic consciousness too, right? Like seahorses are hermaphroditic, I think. So, there's that too. But AI, artificial intelligence, is totally out of those laws. Like we're not having gendered creation. We're having robotics creation that we're trying to we're maybe creating a vessel for consciousness that's totally non-binary. So I just find all of that fascinating, right? Because I think that the Piscean journey of feeling like it's connected to the all, and that it doesn't always resonate with the confinements or the forms that it has to adhere to. I think that we're seeing kind of those limits getting pushed the most that they've ever been pushed to our knowledge as humans. Part of this story too that's happening, I know I'm getting so much more on like a bigger consciousness tangent, but Pisces, like, this is where you live. This is your jam. This is how Pisces wants to feel. Like, Pisces wants to feel unified with everything. It knows we're a part of everything. And Saturn is going to be entering Pisces on the 7th, on March 7th, and it's going to be there for 2 years, a little over 2 years. And Pisces has been in Aquarius the last 3 years. And so Saturn entering your sign of Pisces, this is a big moment over the next couple of years, because Saturn, when it's on a sun energy, like rising or sun placements, or even lunar placements, moon placements, is not easy. It actually carries a signature of depression and hardship. And so going through kind of, so let's talk about depression. Let's talk about what depression is, right? Depression is kind of this like brain chemistry thing that puts us in this lower state where we tend to have sadness or suicidal ideation, and there's something chemically happening in the brain where the brain's not getting enough endorphins or serotonin or dopamine. And so what happens, especially for people with Sagittarius or Pisces placements, is you start to kind of seek these experiences that create dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, things like that. And Pisces, being, ruled by the planet Neptune and being the sign that rules alcohol and escapism through drugs and substances, it's really common when Saturn is transiting Pisces for even Pisces individuals to want to escape their depression through these peak experiences of drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, those types of things. That's the unhealthy way that Pisces gets expressed when triggered in those ways. So this time with Saturn and Pisces can be really triggering for people in recovery. It can be really triggering for people that have substance abuse issues or alcoholism in their family or with family members, and how that affects you. Saturn has that tie to kind of like ancestral family, karmic ties. And so even though collectively we're all going through that transit, Pisces is going to be really impacted by it the most. Pisces and Virgo probably, and all the mutable signs, but it's in Pisces, so you're getting the brunt of it. When it's on that sun or that rising, it feels stifling. It feels like creative expression can be blocked. The positive part of Saturn going through Pisces is it can bring discernment and wisdom to some of the Pisces themes. So one of the common things that happens when Saturn is passing through a sign like Pisces is that we end up, it's kind of like what happens during some people's Saturn returns, where the consequences of escapism are more likely to show up. So if you are struggling with alcoholism or drugs, you're more likely to experience the consequences of your actions and hit your bottom during a transit like this. And so you might be in this position where you are having big wake-up calls where it's time to figure your shit out. And it propels you into having to go very deep into some subconscious soul-searching journey. What is the meaning of life? And maybe some existential freak out, finding something that's an anchor for you to hold on to, very Saturn, and opening yourself up to learning some new modalities of, working through your depression or the things that give you this existential dread. As a Pisces dominant person, the suicidal ideation and existential dread has been really dominant in my life. And I think that a few things that have helped me are Buddhism. Like, I've studied a lot of Buddhism, principles, like in a very simplistic way. There's a lot of different modalities of Buddhism, and I'm not a Buddhist, and there's a lot that I have not studied, but I've read like the Upanishads and some of the other like well-known texts and some Hindu stuff, and just kind of what is the meaning of life and what are we here to do and why are we here to do it. And I think that at the end of the day, out of all the dogmas, theologies, spiritual practices that I've studied, we don't know. At the end of the day, we really don't know. And the best thing that we can do is find acceptance and pleasure and joy in living this very temporary experience and being okay with the unknown, and knowing that we transition when we leave this world. We don't necessarily die. Maybe this version of us does, but we go on. I believe we go on in some other form, whether that's just energy that moves into something around us or reincarnates, whatever. I think that, but finding those things, finding things that kind of give you that acceptance. A lot of people like Carl Sagan, if you're more on the science train and enjoy, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and, Carl Sagan and people that are less spiritually focused. But to me, it's all the same, whether you call it energy or spiritual, spirituality, or whether it's reincarnation or just energy finding a new vessel because it needs somewhere to go, whatever. I don't care what you call it, but it's helpful for you as Pisces going through this transit to make sure that you have belief systems that anchor you. And some people need to be on medications, antidepressants, some people need to have therapy, everybody's different. So finding those things. I think somatic healing is really positive for Pisces. If your common go-to is disassociating out of the body, sometimes Piscean dominant people can get really focused on meditation, transcendental experiences. Like a lot of Pisces want these really peak spiritual experiences to validate their spirituality, but you don't need to do that always. Usually what Pisces needs is to feel more anchored in the current reality, which is really hard for Pisces because Pisces wants to feel the magic of everything. And so it'll seek the disassociation. But what happens if you're constantly living in a dissociative state, you're not really aware of what's happening right now in the here and now. And it can make you more prone to depression when the here and now is kind of smacking you in the face. So I've learned that lesson the hard way, where it's really beneficial for me to be practical and realistic. And that all that means is that I'm facing my life with what's going on today and not letting my imagination or my dream life, that kind of Piscean out there life, dictate my entire experience. Because if I get too delusional, I lose a grasp on what it is I'm doing. So, that balance is really important for you while Mercury is passing through Pisces and Saturn is passing through Pisces. So luckily Mercury is shorter, we're not gonna have Mercury in Pisces for very long. It's gonna move into Aries on the 19th, but Saturn is gonna be influencing you for the next couple of years in a pretty extreme way. All right, we talked a lot about you, Pisces, and your Piscean energy. So we're going to start getting into some of the other energy that's happening this month. Okay. Regroup, reframe in my brain. We're talking about Aries. So we start March out with a lot of Aries energy as well. Aries is the cardinal fire sign that rules the first house that rules identity. And so that house is activated for you right now by Pisces. So the house that's getting activated for Pisces horoscope around Aries energy is the next house over, which is the house that rules material stability, self-worth, and our relationship to material assets around us and how we kind of build that financial stability. It's money. It's the money house, but it's also the self-worth house. And Aries being here is, highlighted with all these planets that we have here. We have 5 celestial bodies in Aries. We've got Jupiter, Venus, Chiron, Vesta, and Juno. Jupiter and Venus and Chiron made a conjunction on the 2nd. We're still kind of in that orb of influence. And this is actually a really, really positive time for the Pisces dominant person when it comes to leveling up around what you see as your worthiness when it comes to money. So if you're self-employed and you're thinking about giving yourself a raise, this is a great time to do it. If you are not self-employed and you have an employer and you're thinking of needing to ask for more money, or you need to leave your job for a better paying job, this is also supported for you right now. The bigger thing that's happening for Pisces around that isn't even so much about the actual money you're making, but how you see yourself of value and worthiness to yourself in the world. And so do you have confidence around what you bring to the table? And do you feel like you're able to ask for what you feel like you're worthy of? Do you even feel worthy of having more or having what you want? And Aries, Aries being ruled by Mars, like I always think of like Alexander the Great, he's just like, I'm going for it. I am young and I'm going for it and I'm conquering it all. Like to me, Aries and Alexander the Great, like that energy is very like relentless, like going for it. Like I have my eye on the prize and I am going to make it happen. And Pisces, I think, has a harder time doing that in certain ways, because Pisces, like, to me, Pisces is like Mother Teresa, where like Mother Teresa is going to say, well, if I go and I conquer everything and I'm relentless about it, I might leave a wake of destruction because I'm not thinking about how my actions are really impacting everybody else, or like, why do I get to have everything when these people don't? Like, I should take the shoes off my feet and give it to them and be less self-oriented, because just because I can have it doesn't mean I should. Like, that's more of kind of the Piscean outlook on things, is that empathic, like, oh, you're in pain, well, let me figure out how to make you not feel pain, or let me take your pain for you. Like, that's also something that Pisces does. Like, here's my good energy and I'll take your pain for you so that you don't have to bear it. It's very self-sacrificial to a fault. Like, that's not necessarily a good thing to do. I love Mother Teresa, but not all of us, that's not healthy for all of us to do that. We don't all have the bandwidth to give to that extent, which I've had to learn the hard way. The little bit of giving that I do when my body's telling me no makes my body freak out and go, like, my body is harming itself because my cup has been runneth over for far too long. So I don't know how Mother Teresa did it, but Aries is not saying that Aries people aren't giving people, not saying that they don't self-sacrifice, not saying that they don't have the same capabilities as Mother Teresa, but the archetype of Aries on its own is a fighter and is a conqueror and is a very, the Emperor card in the tarot is ruled by Aries. I have the Emperor out here. Like, here's Pisces, Queen of Cups, my cup runneth over, and then here's Aries, the Emperor, And I think it's really important for us to know when we need to be the Queen of Cups, and for us to know when we need to be the Emperor, when we need to have our own backs and really, it's kind of that thing of like, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help somebody else, right? And if we're not getting oxygen, and if our needs are not met, it's going to be harder for us to, we don't have a cup overfloweth to give, right? So with this Aries energy in the area that represents self-worth, it's really important for you, Pisces, to maybe ask yourself if you are filling your own cup. Are you seeing yourself worthy of that? And, what do you want? Don't think about whether or not it's good for everybody else. And don't even think, Pisces is going to think of the whole world. Oh, there's this happening here and this happening there, so I shouldn't feel good about wearing makeup today. You know what I mean? I shouldn't feel good about eating this expensive dinner because there's starving children somewhere. It's just like, there's always going to be somebody starving somewhere, always. So just eat the meal, and then if you feel that bad about it, just maybe every time you eat a meal out that's expensive, you donate $20 to an organization, like, you can do things like that. So I think that the self-worth for Pisces with this Aries energy is dismantling those things. Like, it's okay to be self-oriented. It's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to do things for yourself. I think one of the Mother Teresa quotes that she had that I really love, and it's ingrained in my brain, is she said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Go home and be with your family. That's what people need. And I just thought that was so powerful. Like, that's such a powerful thing to say. It starts with you in your home, and I can't tell you how many people I know that run amok in their personal relationships with their friends or their romantic partner, but then want to preach all of this stuff about helping other people. And it's like, but you make everyone else's lives around you really hard. So what makes you think that you should be trying to help all these other people when you can barely manage your own familial relationships, your own romantic partnerships, and your friendships? Everybody's mad at you all the time. So I love that Mother Teresa quote, because it's kind of like, you got to water your own seeds, sow your own oats before you can really say things to other people, help other people. I really don't like taking advice from people who have lives that I don't think are together. That's subjective too, though. There's a lot of people that have been through a lot of shit. Maybe their life doesn't look together, but they have a lot of wisdom to share because of that, so that's subjective. But my point in saying that is that Aries energy is a good time for you to focus on yourself, listen to yourself, and see yourself as worthy and heal that. Chiron's there to help heal that. Okay, gave Aries a lot of attention there. The other part that we're moving away from, so we're going to get into the last half of the month now, okay? We talked about the first half of the month. We didn't talk about the full moon yet, so I'll talk about the full moon first, and then we'll get into the last half of the month. So before we get into the last half of the month, we have a Virgo full moon on the same day that Saturn enters Pisces on March 7th, and it's at 16 degrees Virgo. Virgo is the exact opposite of Pisces. So this is the full moon that happens, in Pisces season. It happens every Pisces season. We have a Virgo full moon, and, Virgo balances out Pisces. So while Pisces is boundless energy, kind of emotional energy out here, Virgo is the earth energy that's also boundless and out here, but doing things more in the earthly realm rather than the spiritual realm. But the two work together. A lot of Virgo dominant people are, really similar to Pisces people and how they want to be of service and, wanting to be, there's a lot of spiritual Virgo people that I know, I think the two polarities really complement each other in many ways, but Virgo can stay a little more grounded and be a little bit more practical, even though it's still a little scattered and boundless. But, where this full moon is happening for you is in your house of relationship. And so partnership, romantic relationships, business partnerships. My mom is Pisces rising. And so this Virgo energy is happening in her house of relationship, and her husband is also her business partner. They run a business together. So I just think that's cute because it's just a nice little synchronicity. But I think that this is a really positive time for the Virgo dominant person to focus a lot on, how do you operate in your relationships, and how do you want to operate in your relationships moving forward, and what energy do you want to manifest and cultivate in your romantic partnerships or business partnerships, any kind of partnership. It's a great time for you to do any kind of love ritual or romantic ritual during that time. Virgo moons are also a great time to get organized and kind of clean out anything that you don't want to bring with you into the next month. So spring cleaning is a really good time, donating things, that kind of stuff will kind of scratch that, charitable itch that we start to feel kind of during this time of year, where it's like, okay, all of the overindulgence of the holidays is over, and now we've got all this crap that we need to clean out for the spring, and let's donate and get rid of stuff. Okay, so moving into the last half of the month, we have what kind of kicks off the last half of March is Venus entering Taurus. So Juno and Venus are going to leave the Aries party and be in Taurus. And that's the area of communication. And this is actually really good for blessing communication for Pisces. So the fact that we have that Virgo full moon kind of activating relationship, if you feel like communication has been difficult in your relationship, Venus and Juno might be here to kind of help clean up or smooth that over, and kind of bring more peace and harmony into how you communicate. Also learning to communicate in a more grounded way, again, which can be really hard for Pisces. And then right after that, the next day, the next 2 days, the 19th, we have Mercury moving into Aries. So Mercury in Aries, we're more prone to speaking more reactively, directly, assertively, can be good for Pisces. If Pisces is being too empathic and emotional, sometimes some Aries assertive, direct energy with a Venus that's more practical and pragmatic could be a nice change. We have our new moon in Aries hitting right after the spring equinox. So the spring equinox happens on the 20th, so we'll be in Aries season. And then we have the new moon on the 21st at 0 degrees Aries, also conjunct that Mercury, which will be at 5 degrees by that point. And so again, this is a really good time, focusing more on that Aries second house, self-worth energy, setting intentions, especially around money. Like if you want to manifest more money into your life, this is a great energy to do that with. And if this is more about self-worth and confidence around seeing yourself as worthy and choosing yourself and doing things for you, that's more self-oriented. We have a negative connotation with the word selfish, but if you're self-sacrificial, being selfish might be just what you need, in certain situations. So you might benefit from kind of just being a little self-oriented during the beginning of Aries season. At the end of the month, we have two transits that are pretty big happening. The first one is Mars is finally leaving Gemini, where it's been for the last few months since August. Long ass time. And we're going to have Mars entering Cancer, which, Cancer is water energy, cardinal water. It trines Pisces. Water likes water. And this is actually a positive transit for Pisces in the sense that it activates the house that represents creativity and self-expression. And so while you've been working through a bunch of these Aries themes around self-worth, maybe focusing more on yourself and having more acceptance around that, Mars is going to enter that creative house and put some inspiration and some ambition there. So it could be a really inspiring end of the month for you in terms of creativity. If you're a musician, this is a really positive time. Music lives in the water signs, especially Pisces. Pisces loves poetry, loves music, loves art. And then when it's hitting in Cancer in that, fifth house of the Pisces horoscope chart, it's just like, oh, let's lean into that. Let's find this way to creatively express ourselves. And even if you're not an artist, just being around that stuff or listening to music that you like or writing poetry or reading poetry that you like, anything that kind of gets you into that imaginal realm in a way that Pisces likes is really positive. The second big transit that happens at the end of the month is Pluto moving into Aquarius for the next 21 years. So Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. And it's finally going to be doing its dance between Aquarius and Capricorn for 2023. And then it's going to station fully in Aquarius from 2024 until 2044. So we have a big transition happening. And, I don't focus on the outer planets a ton with the horoscopes, because for horoscopes, we really just focus on traditional planets, personal planets. But because this is such a major shift happening collectively, and knowing kind of where Pluto hits, if you are Pisces rising, Pluto is going to be, depending on where your rising is, it's going to be dancing between the 12th and the 11th house for you. If you're Placidus, if you're doing whole signs, it's going to be entering that 12th house place for you. And that's big, that's major. And so again, it would be good for you to hire a astrologer to read your birth chart for you during this transit. But because Pluto is slow moving and it's such a big thing that we're all going through, listening to some podcasts just about Pluto and Aquarius, not even in relation to you per se, is going to be beneficial. But again, Pluto, if it's making aspects on certain parts of your chart specifically and igniting certain things, you're going to want to know that that's happening, because Pluto can be pretty destructive and a lot of things kind of fall apart before they get rebuilt. But it's that planet of death and rebirth. So a lot of times, it feels really bad as everything's falling apart. And then what, the phoenix that comes out and the wisdom that comes out and the things that get rebuilt through it are, we look back and we're so glad a lot of times that happened the way that it did. But it takes years, to see that, because it is a long transit. And again, there's times where we go through hardships and it can be hard for us to see the silver linings or the value of it. Sometimes it just looks all bad, and I have a hard time, I really love to be optimistic. The Jupiter side of me, I'm Sag rising, so my Jupiter, optimism, I'd like to try to see the big picture of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we live that in our lifetime, right? And I'm a big true crime fan. So it's hard for me if I see somebody's chart, of someone who died in this horrific way, to go, oh yeah, you were going through this type of transit and there's a silver lining to all of that, it's really hard to see a silver lining to somebody that went through that transit and then ended up in this horrific situation. But what we don't think about is that the chart continues to get activated even after somebody's gone. And a lot of times when certain things are going on in a chart of a deceased person, things are still happening in the world around that person's legacy or their life. And so there are good things that come out of it, I think my landscapers are here. I might need to end this video. My dog could just be barking too. Brissy, come here. Come here. He's just staring at me. But, you know, like we'll see, you know, like the Elvis movie, for example, coming out all these years later after his death. It came out during his Saturn return. He was having a Saturn return while that movie was coming out. So he's passed away. He passed away in this horrific way, you know, and it was so sad. But his legacy continues to live on in a positive way, inspire so many people. Watching his granddaughter, you know, Riley, do all these really cool movies and artistic projects, and her show coming out, and seeing her holding the legacy of her mom who just passed away, her grandmother who's still alive, and also her brother who's gone, and her grandfather that she's never met. Like, she is embodying those traits of the family that are amazing, you know, all that artistic ability. And, you know, I don't know anything about her, but she definitely seems like somebody that is very grounded and rooted in who she is, despite a lot of those hardships that that family has been through. And so, you know, my point in saying that is there's a silver lining to what Elvis left behind, but it's not like he's not witnessing it in terms of him being alive on the planet in his body. Is he witnessing it reincarnated or as a spiritual body? Probably. I like to think so. So I think there's silver linings, you know. I think that we don't necessarily see them maybe in our physical form forever, but, you know, I think a lot of people that have passed in ways or gone through terrible things have left lessons behind. There's laws that get passed sometimes when horrific things happen that wouldn't have passed if that horrific thing didn't happen. So that's Pluto for me. Pluto's going to be really intense for all of us. The world's going to change. It's changing. It's always changing, but we're about to see a whole new leveling up with Pluto in Aquarius in terms of the information technology age. And it's going to be good to kind of just trust that, you know, it's infinite. You know, time is infinite. Time is a social construct. So, you know, you may not feel like there's a silver lining, but it might just take a while for that to come to fruition. And the silver lining might be the ripple, not necessarily what directly happens to you. I know that's not really fun to hear, but it's just kind of how life is, I think. And I try to think that, you know, there's lessons to be learned no matter how things happen. And I don't know, I think it's good to have some optimism around it, but I also think it's good to just be honest that sometimes things just suck, and we don't need to try to paint a good picture around every pile of shit that happens, you know. All right, that's my advice for you Pisces for March of 2023. Good luck. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and I will see you next month.